Grazie e buongiorno a tutti. I will speak in English. So the Museum of Tomorrow is a new kind of museum. It's a museum that lets visitors engage with scientific concepts and also future scenarios. So with that, it is a science museum, but unlike other science museums that you've seen before. So natural history museums show traces of the past. Demonstrative museums show evidence of the present and scientific phenomena. The Museum of Tomorrow is a museum of questions and exploration of possibilities. So the key message we have here is that it's not the museum of the future, it's the museum of tomorrow, and the idea that tomorrow is today. So the fact that it's not a place we arrive to, it's a joint construction made from people, citizens, and members of the human race. So we have two conceptual axes. The first is cosmic sciences. So these are astrophysics, cosmology, in other words, the universe where we come from. Then we have chemistry and atomic physics and particle physics, so what we're made of. And on the other side, we have earth sciences. So these are talking about complex systems that we find on Earth. So we have two ethical guidelines. One is sustainability, so how do we want to live with the planet? And the other one is conviviality, how do we want to live with each other? So the museum is within a very important and historic district called the Maravilha Porto Maravilha. You can see it there in yellow. We have a sister museum called the Rio Art Museum. The Rio Aquarium will be open for the Olympics. And this currently is the largest urban redevelopment project in the earth today. We also have 15 cultural institutions that are there. So now about the architecture. As Nicoletta mentioned, Calatrava is the architect. He was inspired by the form of to create the form of the building because he went to the botanical garden and saw a bromelia. The longilinear modular form inspired him. And so, as you saw in the picture, this is what we have today. This is the MAVÁ square in front. You can see the statue. If you stand in the middle of that statue and you look 360 degrees, you can see the 5-century history of Rio. On the part where you can't see, there's the monastery. And you go all the way from the end, you see the first skyscraper of Rio. You see the Museum of Art. You see the port where anywhere between 2 to 4 million slaves came through, and then you end with the museum, which is the most recent construction. The square itself was opened in September 2015, so very recently, and the museum itself was opened in December 2015. So going into the museum, you see the unmistakable forms of Calatrava, the whites, the impossible concrete shapes. This one, to give you an idea, spent 90 days in a mold. And then downstairs in the back, you have 1,000 square meters temporary exhibition space. You also have an auditorium for almost 400 people in there. And the Museum of Tomorrow, it held a very big challenge within the very name. How do we not become the museum of yesterday? So we decided to use technology. The museum is fully digital. It has one piece in it and one artwork. And through the technology, we can understand the museum as an organism. So we have a digital assistant called Iris. It guides the visitors, and through RFID technology, we can see how the visitors are moving within the space. It also remembers where the visitors have been and tells them in their own language. The museum is trilingual. It's Portuguese, Spanish, and English. It guides the content like that as well. So we have these other two areas which are not common for many museums. One is the Observatory of Tomorrow. That's a space that looks at the latest scientific research and also invites scientists to talk about their work. We just had a Zika talk. We had talk about the disaster in Mariana. We had talk about mini brains recently there. And then Tomorrow Activities Lab, where I'm the director. I'll tell you about that later on in the talk. So the museography, as you may be able to tell here, it was inspired by a musical score. So we have 5 moments. Some are more intense, some are calmer, and there's a crescendo at the middle. And the museography was guided by 5 questions that humanity always asks itself. So starting from the cosmos, that black egg you see there, where do we come from? And then going into the earth, who are we? And then going into the Anthropocene, where are we? And then going to the tomorrows, where are we headed to? And then finally at the us or we area, how do we want to get there? So the cosmos, where do we come from? So here we're inside a black egg. People can lie down, they can sit down, and here is a video where in 8 minutes we put 13.7 billion years in there. So we go from the beginning of the universe to a journey into the interior of the nucleus of a cell. And this was a movie made by the City of God director, if you guys know that movie. So that cosmos is trying to prepare people to enter into another dimension, which is the museum, and then we get into the Earth area. So who are we? So here we have 3 main cubes. The first one is talking about the Earth. So all these pictures are taken from, not the Earth, they're taken from space. So they don't show borders, they don't show nations, they don't show states. And this is the Earth looking from the outside as a system. Inside, it's talking about the 4 forces that make up climate and the different systems on Earth. The other one, the black one that you can see there, that's what's similar to all of matter. That's DNA, the code of life that's on the outside. On the inside, you have different ecosystems from Brazil, from Rio, and from the world that you can enter and interact with. And then, there's one more, which you can't see here. That one is about what human thought has created. So there we have different totems of over 1,000 photos of how humans interact, hate, love, work, celebrate. And there's 140 musical tones that play randomly so that you never enter the same space that somebody else enters. Then we have the Anthropocene. So this is the question, where are we? So here we have this idea that you are here. This is 10 meter high. There's 6 10-meter high totems. They're 3 meters wide, so it's about 2,000 meters of LED lights, and it's extremely poignant, this moment that we humans have become a planetary global force and are altering the climate. So we arrive at the tomorrows. So where are we heading? And here we ask, there's interactive games around here, and so here we ask, what about the humans, society, and climate? What is going to happen in the next 50 years? So the Museum of Tomorrow is always looking 50 years ahead. So in the Tomorrows, we also talk about 6 major trends that will shape the next decades. So the first one, and potentially the most important one, is population growth and longevity. Today we have almost 7.5 billion people on Earth. In 2050, we'll have potentially 10 billion, and these 3 billion new people will come from poor countries. And we will no longer have an age pyramid. We will have the same amount of old people as we have young people. That's never happened in any human society on Earth. So today we have the material means for more integration than ever with all these technologies that we're talking about, but these same ones can also facilitate for more differentiation, more tribalism, more sectarianism. So that's a trend that we see flaring up in many places in the Earth. Climate change, we have, depends a lot on what we do, but also there's a lot of things that we can't do anymore. So there's some different scenarios that we explore there. Changes in biodiversity as a result. By 2100, it's possible that we can witness the 6th greatest extinction on Earth because of this. The increase of artifacts in their number, in their quality, and in their capacity Today they're around us, they'll start going inside our bodies, and it'll push us to the very limit of what it means to be a human. And the expansion of knowledge. So today we have over 50% of the population is literate, and over 50% of that is women. And so if you think in the 20th century that the number of literate women was negligible, it's a huge, huge, huge change for us. So finally we reach the us. How do we want to go? So here we're switching the keys in the museum. Here we are in a mock-up of a indigenous knowledge house. And this is the moment where, before you leave the museum, you get to experience how you have an impact on the earth, on what's around you. So you're passing by, and there are sensors that capture your movements and also the sound that you're making. So the lights change, and the sound also changes based on your presence there. It's a way that we use to describe how you can change this world, and just because you're one person doesn't mean that you can't change it. When you join with other people, it'll change more. And at every point, this is trying to tell you that somewhere it's tomorrow. The sun is always going, so this idea that the future is out there doesn't exist. It's tomorrow's today. And in the middle, you have a shuringa, which is an Aboriginal artifact. Over 200 years old. This is the only object we have in the museum, and it is a connection, showing the connection between past and present and future. So now back to the present. This is a very special week for us. We are having our 6-month anniversary. We've had over 564,000 visitors in 6 months. We thought we would have 450,000, so we are pretty shocked, but very happy that this is happening. So our visitors, we have a very different type of visitation than other museums have in Rio and in Brazil. 42% are not usual museum visitors. 10% have never visited a museum before, and around over 40% are from outside of Rio. So we have a lot of tourists here. Here you can see one of the interactive games about ecological footprints. So the idea is to have a very art-focused and fun way for you to understand your impact on the world. So here you can see our auditorium. We have public programming talking about how we investigate, understand, and explore. It's really a place where people can come and talk about new discoveries, show what they've learned. And now we get to the laboratory of tomorrow's activities. So if the museum is scientific dissemination of scientific information, the lab is about scientific participation. So we function at the intersection between art, science, and technology. And we always try to push the museum is already advanced in certain ways, but we always push them further. So you can see here on the left is the first performance we've had in the museum, sponsored by the lab. This was an art and science project in conjunction with Sorbonne and with a dancer in Brazil. And that was a project talking about the world post-petroleum. As you know, Rio is a petroleum pole. On the right-hand side, you can see an interaction. We have technological exploration moments where we bring the table down to the exhibition area and we interact with people and show them how technologies are made and how they function. So our two areas of focus are future scenarios. So what's the future of entrepreneurship, of work, of food, of relationships, of various different things that once we find partners, we start working with these things. Of art as well was our first work on this. And then high and low tech. So what are the means that we can use to get there? So technology is, we don't just see it as, artificial intelligence and robotics. We also see it as a way to solve a problem. So what old technologies can we actually use that also help us get there? The purpose of the lab is to catalyze the adoption of new technologies, tools, and processes so that people are no longer just consumers, but creators that are protagonists and that can create the future that the museum is talking about. So this is exactly why we exist. It's for these reasons. You can see these are the moments that we captured in the workshops, where you can see that spark of people being able to understand, wow, I can do this myself. You know, this idea that they were able to understand the knowledge, and the idea that they can do this, they can extend it beyond the museum itself. This is the most important thing for us. So we do everything we can to give people the tools to show them where they can find out new information, where they can experiment new things, and open the doors for them to come back and to interact with us continually. So what we do, this gives you a sense of some of the activities we have, which I'll go into later. We had a mapping party in conjunction with the Swiss Next. We put sensors on bikes, and people went around Rio, and we then did a data visualization on that. We had workshops, various here you can see citizen science, science in the kitchen, and exhibitions, which I'll go through next. So we have 4 fronts that we work on. One is exhibitions, the next one is activities, then we have a fellowship program, and then we have courses. So this is our first exhibition here. It's called Capture Me, No Presence Will Be Ignored. It's about the impact of data as the raw material for an information society that we have now. It talks about, you can see there, everybody's talking about Kinect. We use Kinect in this to capture people's hands, and so I'll go a little faster. Workshops, they're always active, and they're always hands-on. Activities, we have skill shares, we have meetups. The fellowship program, we just started this month. We have fellows that are interacting with us. They stay with us from 1 to 3 months. I invite anybody who is working on technology and its impact on society to look up the fellowship program for next year. And now back to the future here. So you can see our approach is transdisciplinary, not only the fact that different disciplines are sitting at the table, but we also try to use the tools and processes of one discipline to inform the other. It's always experimental. We're always experimenting and failing, and then experimenting, and then finally one point we succeed. And then partnerships. And now we are focusing on prototyping the future. So these are the projects that we're working on now. Digital fabrication, you know, how can you do something completely digital that you can't do at all by hand? So the software side and also the hardware side. The impact of virtual reality, we're studying it. We just got Tilt Brush, and we're looking at this ability of using it for therapeutic purposes. Drone race, we're also focusing on that. The telepresence robot, looks like some of the things were lost here in translation of the slides. Our telepresence robot, we're building that now. We're starting to build our food computer. The Internet of Everything, we are working with Cisco on creating a data sensing course and visualization and citizen science project that we continue work on. And to finish up, it's going super fast now because I got the notice. The key ingredient here with us is fun. This is not a lighthearted, way to end. This is super important because you never have enough money, you never have enough time, you never have enough staff to do what you want. We certainly don't, even being the Museum of Tomorrow. So we take care to celebrate every milestone, every project. You can see several here. And we really focus this on a motivational tool. This is our motivational technology, is fun. So with that, thank you all, and may the force be with you. We also did the Star Wars people. Thank you very much. Thanks.